President Trump lashed out on Monday after a pair of reports from the New York Times and Washington Post raised questions about his interactions with Russia and its president, Vladimir Putin. CBS News Washington correspondent Paula Reed has the latest.
It never worked for Russia. It's a whole big fat hoax.
The president issued that denial today in response to a New York Times report. The FBI opened an investigation into whether he was acting on behalf of Russian interests when he fired FBI Director James Comey in May 2017. He then attacked the FBI.
The people doing that investigation were people that have been caught that are known scoundrels. I guess you could say they're dirty cops.
The president was first asked about the explosive allegations Saturday on Fox News, but did not directly answer.
Are you now, or have you ever worked for Russia, Mr. President?
I think it's the most insulting thing I've ever been asked.
The counterintelligence investigation was taken over by special counsel Robert Mueller, who is assessing whether there was any cooperation between the Trump campaign and Russia. The president also downplayed a Washington Post report that he has concealed details of multiple meetings with Russian President Vladimir Putin from members of his own administration.
I just don't know anything about it. It was a very, very successful meeting.
CBS News has confirmed that after a 2017 meeting with Putin in Hamburg, Germany, the president took the notes from his interpreter and instructed them not to discuss what happened. House Democrats may now try to subpoena those notes. Representative Elliot Engel.
It makes you suspicious and makes you scratch your head and think, what is the president trying to hide? And so I think it's very important that the public know the truth.
These allegations are expected to be hot topics tomorrow at the confirmation hearing for Attorney General nominee William Barr. According to his prepared remarks, he will testify that he wants the special counsel to complete its work, and he will vow to provide transparency for the special counsel's much-awaited final report. Omar.
Paula, thank you. Let's bring in Rebecca Roiphe. She's a professor of law at New York Law School and a former assistant district attorney here in New York. First of all, Rebecca, what was your initial reacting to the reporting from both the Times and the Post?
Well, look, I mean, first of all, there was an investigation into the president of the United States being an agent of Russia, a hostile foreign power.
It sounds like a James Bond script.
Seriously, that is shocking. And if it hadn't been for all the news that we've had up until now, that would be even more shocking. So I think that you need to start with that, which is, you know, the FBI doesn't open things like this lightly. So the fact that they did it means that there was reason to do it. There were a bunch of people there who made this determination based on facts. And so that's the very first thing that, you know, that I thought of. After that, it also occurred to me that, you know, for so long, the president has been undermining this investigation as politically motivated. And here is something that makes it so clear that it's not, because it's all about Russia. It's always been all about Russia. And prosecutors have been doing what they're supposed to do, which is not pursue an individual. That's not the way prosecutors or investigators are supposed to do things. Instead, they've been investigating a crime and following evidence. And, you know, we experts have been saying that for a while, but now it's really clear that that's how it's been.
The Times couldn't confirm whether Mueller was still pursuing the matter, but if he does, what implications could this reporting have on the special counsel as he moves forward? Because it's jaw-dropping.
Right. I mean, you know, this is obviously the question on everybody's mind, which is, OK, that was an investigation was open, but was it ever closed? You know, so, I mean, we don't know that. And we don't know if it was still going on. We don't know what facts were uncovered. And so, you know, and it's all related. The question of whether there was collusion, the question of whether there was obstruction of justice, and the question of whether or not the president was working for a foreign power are all a part of the same question.
And associates, too, who are surrounding the president.
Absolutely, 100%. This is not the first time that Russia has tried to go after politicians and try to get them on their side and buy them favor and so forth. This, you know, it happened famously back in 1968. But no time have they ever been this successful. And we already know that from Mueller's indictments. Russia was incredibly successful. So he has already shown that this is not a witch hunt. And now the question is, where does it lead us?
Investigations started by the FBI had both criminal and counterintelligence aspects to it. What would agents be looking for? And with your background, what would you be looking for? I mean, everybody wants the smoking gun, but what little nuggets would you be looking for?
Well, I mean, I think what you're looking for is you're following the evidence about Russia. So what you're looking at is what is Russia doing, right? And that was the whole first part of this investigation. We now know what Russia was doing, or at least we know a lot of what Russia was doing. So now you want to see what happened, because what we know didn't happen was somebody didn't publicly scream, "Oh my God, like this is horrible and totally inappropriate," and somebody come in here and let's figure out how to handle it. So what happened? Who was responding to which effort in what way? And you just follow those little strands of evidence. And we've already seen so many of them through Paul Manafort, through Flynn, through Michael Cohen. And so we just need to know what other strands are there out there.
Based on the reporting that you've seen, do you think there could be a relationship between the FBI's obstruction of justice investigation and potential Russian collusion? Will those paths even get close, or is that just such a huge step?
No, I mean, that's the whole thing about this report, is that it makes it look like it's much more similar. So that what happened was there was already an investigation into Russia. And then when the president fired James Comey, the FBI wasn't thinking obstruction of justice. They were still thinking of this counterintelligence investigation. So whenever you do a counterintelligence investigation, you're also looking for anybody who's potentially committed a crime. But now we know that it was never really obstruction of justice. If the facts turned to that, then they would have brought that case, but that wasn't what they were looking at. It also explains Rod Rosenstein, because everybody was like, why didn't Rod Rosenstein recuse, right? Remember, he had issued that opinion back when Comey was fired, saying it's okay to fire Comey based on how he treated the Clinton emails.
It makes you ask, what does he know?
Right. And so everybody was like, well, I think Rod Rosenstein should recuse himself if this is an obstruction case. But the thing is, it wasn't an obstruction case, so he didn't need to recuse. It was never centrally focused around that one fact. And that, I think, is a critical thing to understand, is that these things are not as separate as they've been treated. And treating them separately is part of what's made it possible for Trump to call this whole thing a witch hunt. If it looks like one big investigation into a foreign power trying to undermine American institutions, well, that's bipartisan. It really should be.
I want to follow up on the Washington Post story, which says the president went to extraordinary lengths to conceal details of his conversations with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Obviously, there's going to be translators in there. These things aren't done in a vacuum, although there are soundproof booths that we've heard about. What do you make of that, him trying to get people to not report or talk about what they talked about?
Well, again, these things look so suspicious. I mean, as a prosecutor...
Is that enough, though? Just suspicious?
No, it's not enough. But what I'm saying is, when you're a prosecutor, you're looking at these little clues. And the clues are the things that we're seeing, which is... That's crazy. Like, why would he want that even?
There's the idea of it's national security and national safety, and so...
But usually you have your top people in the room with you, or somebody, and you don't demand that. I mean, I don't know if that reporting is true, but if the reporting is true that he demanded that the notes be turned over to him, I mean, you don't do that. So
as a prosecutor, what does that tell you?
The prosecutor, it tells you, like, I need to answer those questions. I need to follow this trail because it's not over here. Right? There's something going on. It's the same thing with his lies. Why is he lying to the American public? That's not a crime. It's not. The same way it's not a crime to have your own private meeting when you're a president with a foreign leader. But because of the context, it looks really weird. When things look weird as a prosecutor, you just ask the questions and then you follow the evidence. And I assume that's what Mueller's doing right now. It's just that we're not going to know the answer until that report comes out.
And to follow up what you first said at the beginning, is they're not looking for a person. They're following the crime. Whichever person happens to dip into that crime becomes part of the investigation. That's how you're trained.
That's how it works, right? So that you can have counterintelligence part. The FBI can be involved in counterintelligence, and it can be involved in criminal investigations. And there's a lot of overlap, especially after 9/11. They aren't so distinct. We don't have FBI who's assigned to one and FBI who's assigned to another. We want the communication because we know they're often involved together in the same set of facts.
It is absolutely fascinating, and everybody's waiting to see if and when this report is going to happen.
100%, yeah.
So it'll be must-see TV.
Yes.
Rebecca Roiphe, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.